Hello everyone, this video will be day 3 and 4 of my 500 trading challenge that I've set out for myself since last Tuesday on the 24th. It's been going on for 4 days now. For Thursday, I traded ACHV, INSY, KTOV, MYOS, VISI, SKLN. As for Friday, I traded GCAP, KURA, TYHTS. No, that's actually wrong. It should be TYHT and CLNT. Now I'm going to go ahead and be truthful about both of these days. I was actually in the red, and the main theme of this video lesson is going to be over trading, and number two, trading based off emotions. So those are the two things hopefully the people watching this will avoid themselves by learning through my mistakes. Now I'm going to go right into it. Now I'm going to dive right into it and do a recap for each ticker I've traded. So I'll start with ACHV, and here we have the 1 minute chart. I shorted 500 shares at 290 and covered at 284, which was a pretty decent trade. Nothing really to say about this. I saw that it made a huge uptrend from the 220s all the way to a high of 385. So I knew that it was overextended. So I shorted once it broke this support level at 290, but I took profits way too soon. But as I've mentioned in the previous videos, I never regret taking profits, only regret not covering for small gains. Next, we have INSY, and this had a huge downtrend on Thursday, and it's actually halted as of right now. The reason was because I think the CEO or one of the top people for this company was arrested due to fraudulent charges. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure on the details. So I was waiting on the bottom here, on the possible bottom, just waiting for a buying opportunity because I know that for every stock that has a major downtrend like this, they also will have a quick little bounce because the shorts will be covering on top of each other. And it was way towards the end of the day. So I knew that the shorts were going to cover soon, but I got in way too early on this and I bought 500 shares at 583 and I sold at 567 for a 16-cent loss. The reason why I held on for so long for nearly 20 cents was because I bought this on a 1 minute candle and also sold this on a 1 minute candle. And if you see the bottom tail here, that was because stops were being taken out and it was way too quick for me, as even with my hotkeys as I tried to exit it. This was not a great trade overall, and I don't think I'll be making a similar trade like this in the near future because it's very unpredictable and how you could catch the bottom. What I should have done instead was wait for the uptrend to happen, a confirmation of the uptrend, maybe wait for 3 green candles or 4 green candles, but that's not what I did. And it's a good thing I cut losses quickly because if we see in the next 4 candle, we see a low of even 518. I could have actually ended up selling at its low at 518. I don't know. It could have happened, but INSY, I ended up losing nearly 20 cents on 500 shares. Not a great trade at all. Next is KTOV. This was an interesting trade. I scalped this a couple of times. I started with buying 400 shares at 268. It was up on some kind of news. I don't really remember. This is a biotech. And I sold at 271, all 400 shares, about 3 cents. I got a little disappointed because I bought this on the third green candle and I sold way too soon because I saw a possible topping here at 270-ish. So I sold and I watched it come down to its dip. So I was pretty happy. But then I saw it come all the way back up and I decided to re-enter again at 276. Ended up selling half at 284 and ended up holding the rest for break even. Now, I thought this could keep uptrending because this was an afternoon spike. Maybe there's a lot of shorts in this. They'll continue covering and it has a catalyst, but I was wrong. And I ended up going into it again for the third time with, again, 400 shares at 261 and ended up selling half at 256 because I was still hopeful that I was going to come back up. But we see this big red candle here just breaking the support and ended up selling the rest at 256. Before I sold it at 260 half and I ended up selling the rest at 256. Now I decided to get back in this one more time because I saw strong support at 251, but it was a no-go. And I ended up selling all of my 400 shares on this fourth trade at 248, cutting my losses very quickly. One thing I will say is that with all of these trades, I've been ended up cutting losses very quickly, But the thing is, commissions have been a huge factor in making my days even redder than it should be. And next we have MYOS. I saw in the pre-market it was trending really, really high, and everyone was saying on Twitter, etc., it's going to keep uptrending. But I said I'm not really sure about that because it has a long-term chart history of not being able to hold its gains, right? So in the pre-market, I was really watching the $2 range for strong support because if it did hold $2, then I would have definitely bought. And I wanted to get 500 shares at 220 because I thought it could hold, but I didn't get filled. I only got filled for 193 shares and ended up selling at 213, getting out with a 7-cent loss. I ended up waiting for the market open to confirm that it was going to have a big morning panic, and the longs who previously went in on this in pre-market are going to be selling off, and there's also going to be shorts coming in this. So I want to ride the downtrend, and I ended up shorting at 196, and I ended up covering at 185. I held through the lows of 170 because I got way too greedy, but in hindsight, I should have seen that there was a strong support from the pre-market level at 173, but I got stubborn and I ended up covering at 185. I was left feeling a little bit salty, a little bit, disappointed in myself. And I said, I left way too much profits on the table and I covered way too soon. So greed got the best of me. And the previous trades put me in a bad mindset. And I ended up getting into this a lot of times. I won't even go over all of these trades. But basically, what ended up happening was I ended up taking 6 total positions and 6 total exiting positions. So 12 trades in total going in and out, back and forth. And the main play should have been shorting this in the morning into the panic and covering somewhere around here at the support area. The rest of this is all scalping. And I ended up exiting for a few cents in losses because I cut my losses quickly. And that is the one thing I've been consistent at, even though I keep going into all these trades emotionally, hoping to make money, but I keep shorting and buying in the random spots, which is not good at all. Next, we have VISI. This stock made me a lot of money on day one of my 500 trading challenge. I ended up making $200 on this. So this has been my favorite stock. And in the previous video, I specifically said if it holds above the $3 range, it's going to have another short squeeze. And it did indeed end up having the short squeeze. But at the same time, I also knew it was heading towards the 200 EMA, which I believe was around 450. So I thought that was a great resistance level because volume was fading as well. So I ended up shorting at 435. It was quite early and ended up covering at 345. And the reason I held on for so long is because I got stubborn. And once again, the previous trades, the emotions kept snowballing and it affected this trade very much, which made me hold longer than I normally would. And this stock trades at a 5-cent interval. So $4, 405, 410, 415, you get the idea. And I was still short bias on this, but what I should have seen was that it kept holding its previous support levels, even though it keeps dropping back down after making new highs. I should have respected that fact and that there was still a short squeeze coming, but instead I shorted again at 450. My logic part of my mind just jumped out the window, and I'm trading emotionally, strictly emotionally at this point. So I shorted again at 450, but this time I said I'm not going to hold much longer than 10 minutes or so. And even if I do, I'm going to cut losses at break even, which I ended up cutting losses at 455, which was only 5 cents above my original entry, which is really good. And then I ended up shorting at a really great entry here at 400 shares at 475, and the high was 485, so 10 cents below the high it made. In all honesty, it was a little bit of luck that played into this because honestly, I should have shorted into the next candle that came after. But luck does play a part sometimes when you're trading, and I managed to grab nearly the top, 10 cents below 485, and I ended up holding this all the way down to 440, and I flipped my position. What I mean by flipping position is that let's say I'm holding a stock that's long or even a short. As soon as I cover or sell, I'm going to go into the stock again, nearly around the same price I exited or covered, to start a new position, the opposite position, because I believe the inverse is happening, which I believe was going to happen at 440. So I ended up covering all my shares at 440, ended up taking profits of 35 cents on a 400 share, and I also flipped my shares, went in at 440 long with 400 shares as well. I ended up holding throughout this whole consolidation because I knew there was strong support down here in the 420s. Granted, I should have waited to get a better price, but at this point in trading, I was just trading emotionally, and I just wanted to make money quick to get myself out of the red, and I became an irrational trader. But my thesis was right. This did end up uptrending up to 465. I wanted to sell at 460, but there was something going on with the execution with my broker, and I ended up getting out 450, a 10-cent gain. I wanted to try getting into this again, and I shorted the 425 because I thought it was going to crack 420, which it did, but it touched 415 and came right back up. So I ended up covering at 435, giving back the 10-cent gain I just made on the shares I flipped after covering at 440. Now, this is currently trading below $4, so my thesis was in fact on point, but short term, it's just I couldn't see it, and everything looked like it was going to go my way because once again, I was trading emotionally. And SKLN, this was one of my worst trades, I would say, out of the whole day, because I bought this at 203 and I sold this at 194. What initially happened was, this is a 1 minute chart. I bought this at the top of this green candle and I watched it go all the way back up to 213 and coming all the way right back down. And I should have taken profits on its way down from 213, but I got greedy and I said, I'm in the red and I need to make up for the profits and I need to make up for the losses somehow. And this is going to be my home run trade, which in fact wasn't. And I ended up cutting losses at 194, which was pretty good, was decent because it ended up coming back down all the way to 170, and I could have lost 30 cents on my 500 shares at 203. So that concludes my Thursday trades, and I'll be jumping right into my Friday trades. And I'll start with GCAP. This uptrended all day on Friday, and I believe this was a Friday short squeeze as well because it was up on news on a Bitcoin. And anything that's related to Bitcoin, which is positive, makes the stock go up because of the whole crazy Bitcoin trend that's been going on in the market. So going into Friday, my mindset wasn't right because of Thursday, and that really affected the way I traded. So let's see what I did wrong with this trade. So I shorted at 400 at 681 and I covered in this area at 688, and I reshorted for the second time at 679 and I covered that reshort at 690, and for the third time I tried to short it again, 400 shares at 695, and I ended up covering those shares at 695 for break even for the last time, which was great because it uptrended all the way up to 760 because shorts ended up covering on top of each other. My best guess is that shorts were coming into this again at previous morning high at 719, but it ended up holding its gains, which should cause it to squeeze even more up to 760. Now I'll be looking at this on Monday, which is tomorrow, to see for opportunities of continuation in its up spike, but I'll have to check with the Bitcoin prices, how the market is doing overall, etc. But I will say this will make a great short later into the week if it makes new highs, and it'll come back down just as quick as it went up. Or who knows, maybe it will have its uptrend like HMNY did. Next, we have KURA, which was a very interesting trade. News came out in this 5 minute candle here. It made its uptrend all the way to 1460 before coming right back down. It got stuffed down and there was a halt here for this 5 minute, and I got in at 50 shares. I shorted at $13. It made its low at all the way down to 1210. I could have covered anywhere between these two candles, but I saw it slowly uptrend and uptrend until it reached its previous resistance level at 1330, and I told myself I'm gonna have to cover if it hits 1330, which I did, and I got out for a 30-cent loss on this. And once again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the reason why I'm not taking profits as quickly as I normally do is because I was in the wrong mindset of having to make up for the loss and trying to dig myself out of the red that I put myself in from Thursday and now come into Friday. TYHT was once again one of the examples of what you should not do when trading. I bought this at 410 and I took profits of 300 shares at 426, which is pretty decent. Made 16 cents off 500 shares in the 1 minute candle. And I sold the rest at 410 for break even because this time I wanted to sell half into the spike to lock in profits and hold the rest and see if I could get a home run off this. If not, I told myself I'll come out with break even, which I did, and I respected that. But now here's where I did wrong. I bought it again, 500 shares at 401, and I sold at 387, which gave back all of the gain I just made. So I got really upset by this. Well, upset wouldn't be the right word. It's interesting because I was kind of indifferent because at this point I was numb to the losses. It's funny to say, but it put me in a in like a revenge kind of mode. I wanted to take revenge on these stocks and I wanted to get my profits from these stocks any way I could, going long or short, because I'm comfortable with going both long and short. And I couldn't find shares to short up until in the afternoon. Before I shorted, I actually got in again at 337 and I scalped it back up to 343. And then I shorted at 347. I saw that it was holding resistance, maybe it could come back up because the shorts were going to cover, and I ended up making a 1 cent profit off 100 shares because I got impatient with the stock and I decided to move on. CLNT was actually the first stock of the day I traded. This was a very low float stock, about 2 million, 3 million shares. I'm not sure, but it was well below 5 million shares. And there was a couple of shorts in this. There was about 200K shorts according to shortsqueeze.com. It had a high of 585 because it was up on news, the same news that it originally made its stock to spike a couple of days ago. I knew that this stock had its ability to spike, but will it spike again? That's the question. I thought it was going to, so I was long biased on this, and I got a little bit impatient with this. I should have waited for better support areas to buy off on, but I bought at 517. Right after I bought, it actually dipped all the way down to $5 range. It was holding $5 pretty well, but on very light volume. Now, the reason why I didn't cut my losses at $5 was because I knew that some traders were going to look at this and see the same thing I saw and want to get in around the market open in order to see a bigger spike. I was depending on that as my Hail Mary, and it did in fact come through, and I ended up selling at 525 right before the big drop at the morning open, dropping below. It just couldn't hold above $5 anymore. Ended up getting crushed all the way down to its low of 406. This was actually my first trade, as I said, and I ended up getting out with profits of about $17 or so. I'm not sure how much exactly. I should have just ended my trading there because things just weren't going right. But as you guys saw from my previous trades, if you have one bad trade, but you end up coming out with profits, just take it and close your monitor. And because sometimes when you're trading, you get so emotional. And if you're an emotional trader like me, you might want to take revenge on stocks, which never works. Because once you get into that mentality, you end up seeing patterns everywhere. It just puts you in a bad place. So the best thing to do would be to take a step back. You don't even have to stop trading for the rest of the day if you haven't hit your max daily stop loss, which for me was $100, which I did in fact hit on Thursday, but I continued trading anyways, which ended up blowing my losses up to $200. But on Friday, I respected my daily stop loss and I ended up losing like about $97. All in all, I ended up losing 250 dollars on just on commissions alone, and I ended up losing $50 as my realized loss. So in total, I ended up losing $300 in total, and I'll be starting tomorrow with roughly $450, which is $50 below what I started on Tuesday on day one of my 500 trading challenge. Just to recap on the main points of what my video lesson was is number one, stop over trading. I traded way too many times on Thursday on way too many tickers, scalping in and out, going long and short. because of my revenge emotion, which got the best of me. Number two, once hitting max daily stop loss, which for me is $100. For you, it might be different because you have a bigger account, smaller account. Stop trading. And number three, most importantly, stop having a "I have to make a certain amount per day" mentality. Now, as you guys all know, if you look at my first video, I ended up making $200 on VISI with just $500, making my account grow to $700 in just one trade. The next day, I made nearly $60, which grew my account to $760 just off trading on 2 days with $500. So that's a 50%, that's over 50% in account increase. So I kept getting into the mentality of, okay, now I need to do better than what I did on the first day and day two, and at least make $70 per day, which got me into that bad mentality, which proved true on Thursday because I did end up making profits on my first trade by shorting MYOS. And I think I was up about $27 or so, but I kept wanting to make more and more and more, and I had an unrealistic expectation of myself. Subconsciously, I kept saying I need to make more than $67, which made me lose $200 on Thursday. Friday, same thing. CLNT, I made $17 or so, but I said, I gotta make more. I gotta get out of the red now, which was even worse at that point because it wasn't even about wanting to make $60 at least. It was about getting out of the week green. So this has been my video lesson. I hope you guys could take away the lessons from the mistakes I made and not do them yourself. Tomorrow, I'm going to come back with a fresh perspective. And by going over the mistakes I've made will allow me to come back tomorrow and say, okay, these mistakes were made. I can't make the same mistakes again. But the most important thing is that I'm going to stick to my rules of number one, stop trading once I hit 100 max stop loss per day. And number two, trading with 500 to 700 shares. And number three, stop having the mentality of I need to make a certain amount per day and I won't overtrade. Thank you for watching. I hope you made it this far. If not, that's okay too. Come back tomorrow and please subscribe because I'll continue to come out with these videos, and I'll also provide videos on helpful advice and tips and tricks you could do, as well as broker reviews, because I know a lot of you are new traders and are looking for the great brokers to start with small accounts. And as you could see with my account, I only started with $500. It is possible to grow it, but only if you follow rules and stay consistent with your profits and not giving back your gains like I did. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys here tomorrow.